Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So here in the community, we kind of have our slang terms for certain aspects that fragrances have. One of them is this fragrance slaps. That could mean a number of different things to different people, but for me, it pretty much means that the fragrance has this way of kind of hitting your nose almost as if someone slapped you against it. So the fragrance just has this way of just taking over your olfactive senses, whether for a period or for the entire wear of the fragrance, doesn't matter. So not necessarily a performance video, not even necessarily a beast mode fragrance video. This is just a video of a fragrance that, in my mind, I think the fragrance slaps, if you will. These are slapper fragrances. I got 10 of them today, and they're all fragrances that I think have a way of kind of captivating the olfactive senses in a way that makes me think it's almost aggressive. Before we get started, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and remember, hit that bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, first up from the house of Versace, this is Eros Flame. Versace Eros Flame. I would imagine to most people that have any experience with any of the Eros fragrances, this wouldn't be a surprise. These fragrances definitely have that slap quality. They are very strong fragrances, very loud fragrances, attention-getting fragrances. I particularly like Eros Flame the most. I'm actually not really a fan of the Eros fragrances in general, but if I had to have one, I would go with this one, and if I was gonna wear one, it would be this one. So instead of a big focus on the mint and the vanilla and the apple-like accords that's in the original Eros, this one has more mandarin, orange type flavoring, a little bit of a lemony vibe. There's an interesting note of Kenoto in this fragrance. Also some herbal qualities. There's rosemary, still has plenty of vanilla, quite spicy compared to the original Eros as well. At this point, I'd be surprised if there's gonna be another flanker of this fragrance, but this one kind of holds its own. It's not as popular as the original Eros fragrances, but it's still kind of hanging in there. And I don't think there's any doubt in most people's mind that Eros in general, and this one included, Eros Flame, definitely has that it slaps quality to it. Once again, from the house of Versace, Eros Flame. All right, next up, coming from the house of Salvatore Ferragamo, this is Uomo. Salvatore Ferragamo's Uomo. Uomo's signature is a good option as well. That fragrance is, in many ways, probably even stronger than this one, but I like this one better. Whew, yeah, that one hits. So this fragrance here basically smells like tiramisu. Lots of spice in it. That tiramisu kind of creamy custard-like quality along with coffee grinds. All of that is in here. Uomo's signature presents those same qualities in a much richer and louder way, but I think this one is a little bit more true to what would remind me of a tiramisu. Either way, both fragrances definitely have that slap quality to them. They're both very loud and very attention-grabbing style fragrances. Very sweet fragrances. So I think Uomo, the original Salvatore Ferragamo, Uomo fragrances, Uomo and Uomo signature at least, have that slap quality. But like I said, I just like this one better, so that's why I featured it. Once again, from Salvatore Ferragamo, this is Uomo. Next up from the house of Montal, this is Intense Cafe. Turn the bottle, right? Montal's Intense Cafe. So with this one here, if you're familiar with it, you definitely would agree, I would imagine, that this one is a slapper, as a lot of Montals are. Woo, yeah, that is strong. So this one here is kind of known as a coffee fragrance, as the name would imply, but it's more of like a latte style coffee fragrance. Matter of fact, the coffee accords in here are kind of reserved. Like I said, very lactonic in nature. Also has a lot of rose and just tons of vanilla. It's very sweet, kind of lactonic, kind of creamy coffee fragrance. All I know about this one is when you spray it in a room, it takes over the room, so this room is gonna pretty much smell like Intense Cafe for a while now. This one does calm down a little bit once it gets later into the dry down, and you actually get a little bit more of the coffee accords that are in this fragrance, but this one definitely slaps for a majority of the wear. Again, a lot of Montals do that very same thing, so shouldn't be a surprise if you're familiar with Montal fragrances. So once again, we've got Montal's Intense Cafe. Next up, coming from the house of Franchesca Bianchi, we have got Lost in Heaven. Franchesca Bianchi's Lost in Heaven. First of all, look how dark that juice is, so you know that might be an indicator that this fragrance has some oomph to it, and it does. Ooh, yeah. So this one here is very spicy, very resinous, a little bit woody, and a touch animalic too. Very pungent quality to this fragrance. It's not necessarily funky, but it is very strong, and it's just not gonna be for everybody. Definitely has that slap you across the nose quality to it. It definitely is a fragrance that, in so many words, announces itself, if you will. Got a lot of strong notes in here like castoreum. There's quite a bit of cumin in this that already is gonna turn a lot of people off. There's beeswax, giving a very interesting quality to this fragrance. And a ton of resins and very heady florals to go along with it. This fragrance really impressed me when I got it in. I've got a couple more from the house coming in very soon. Looking forward to checking those out. But this one here has that slap quality. Once again, from the house of Franchesca Bianchi. This is Lost in Heaven. All right, next one's coming from the house of Chanel. This is Le Lion de Chanel. Le Lion de Chanel from the house of Chanel. As far as I'm concerned, this is the deepest, richest, and strongest fragrance to date in the exclusives collection from Chanel. This is basically a very resinous and spicy and woody fragrance featuring primarily a note of labdanum. The fragrance does have some citrus accords by way of bergamot and lemon to kind of help announce itself. The fragrance pretty much stays really strong throughout the wear, all the way deep into the dry down. It's definitely one that will capture your nose and hold its attention. Thick stuff, amazing stuff, and a little goes a long way with this one. Yeah, you don't need to spray it a ton for it to captivate your nose. But I definitely love this stuff, but it's not for everybody. You definitely want to check this one out first, in my opinion at least. Once again, from the house of Chanel, this is Le Lion de Chanel. Come on, focus. There we go. Next one's coming from the house of Rasasi. We've got Hawas. Rasasi Hawas. Just a side note, I did see that they came out with a flanker for this. I might look into it, we'll see. But anybody familiar with this fragrance shouldn't be surprised that this one slaps, because that's kind of what a lot of the hype was around this one. Very strong fragrance, very mass appealing fragrance, great for the warmer months, and frankly this one is strong enough that it's a good summertime fragrance that can work in the cooler months. This is overwhelmingly fruity and sweet, a little bit musky as well, kind of some woody accords going along with it. Doesn't smell very authentic, it is quite artificial, but it is done in a way that I think is actually pleasant. I would also say with this one that a little goes a long way. Me personally, I wouldn't spray this a ton, but I imagine some people do, and they're slapping not just themselves, but everybody else that comes in contact with it. So, slapper fragrance for sure. From the house of Versace, we've got Hawas. All right, so the next one's coming from the house of Amouage, and this is Lyric Man. Amouage Lyric Man. Now, if you're familiar with the house of Amouage, you might say they have a lot of slappers as well. I would agree, but I actually would say that more of them don't have that slap you across the nose quality. They're just very strong. This one I think kind of stands out, at least in the ones I have in my collection, because of this very strong combination of lime mixing with a lot of spices, primarily nutmeg, and this very thick, jammy rose along with green accords accompanying the fragrance, has this ability to kind of grab your nose a little bit sooner than maybe some of the other fragrances that I have, and just because it just has this pop to it. There's also some resinous accords and a good amount of sweetness to this too, especially when it dries down, giving it this really nice appeal in my opinion. It's one of my favorite rose fragrances in my collection, and I definitely like that combination of green accords with very jammy rose mixing with spiciness. This one definitely slaps in my book. So once again, from the house of Amouage, this is Lyric Man. Moving on, from the house of Marc-Antoine Barrois, this is Ganymede. Marc-Antoine Barrois' Ganymede. As you know, I'm a big fan of this fragrance. Definitely has that slap you quality. Ooh, yeah, slap you quality to it. Primarily, I think it comes from the overwhelming orange flavored accords that this fragrance has, mixing with that heavy dose of saffron. I find that fragrances that have a lot of saffron in the top really have that slap you in the nose quality. They may not stay that way, but it doesn't matter. A lot of saffron in a fragrance, in my opinion, gives the fragrance a slap quality. There's also a lot of mineralic notes with this fragrance, supported with some pretty heavy leathery accords too. This one's actually going to be my scent of the day today. Looking forward to wearing it. I've been putting it on the back burner for a little while just to give some other fragrances some wears, but it's time to break this one back out. And it's a little bit cooler today too, so I'm looking forward to that as well. So once again, from the house of Marc-Antoine Barrois, this is Ganymede. All right, next up, coming from the house of the Harmonist, we've got Hypnotizing Fire. The Harmonist Hypnotizing Fire. And yes, this one definitely slaps. Yeah, a little goes a long way with this one too. You definitely don't need to douse yourself in this fragrance. This is going to be a kind of airy, spicy, somewhat gourmand, vanillic, and rose fragrance. Has a little bit of a smoky touch to it as well to give off that fire quality, if you will. I have had a number of people ask me, does this fragrance perform well? Does it project well? I tend to tell them that, it does for me, but it might differ for you. But yes, let me just give a general answer right now. At least on my skin, and I think on most people's skin, yes, this fragrance slaps, projects, and performs. It is quite pricey. I don't know if the Harmonist in general is ever going to show up on discounters, but I do think this one and a number of them, if you want to make the investment, you're going to enjoy the fragrance. So once again, from the house of the Harmonist, this is Hypnotizing Fire. All right, and last but certainly not least, from the house of Guerlain, this is LOM Idol Extreme. Guerlain LOM Idol Extreme. So I imagine many that have experience with this fragrance know that it definitely has a slapping quality. I'm actually gonna give it a spray. Yep, that infamous almond accord mixing with some plum in this fragrance also has some leather and tobacco and some cedar for the base of the fragrance. As the name does imply with this fragrance, it is extreme. A little goes a long way with this one as well, in my opinion. I do know that this bottle does contain a reformulated version. I actually never got my nose on the previous iteration, and I probably won't, but I don't care. The fragrance in this version still slaps. The other may be better or may not be. It doesn't really matter. This one still packs a punch, still has that slap you across the nose quality. So if you're someone who never actually smelled the previous iteration of LOM Idol Extreme from Guerlain, don't waste your time or your money trying to find the old version, paying some crazy premium for it. I promise you this one works just fine. So once again, from the house of Guerlain, we've got LOM Idol Extreme. Okay guys, that is gonna do it for this list. That was 10 slapper fragrances that I have in my collection. I've got plenty more. That's just the 10 I wanted to feature for today. So let me know down in the comments below, what's a fragrance you have in your collection that you think has that it slaps quality to it. I want to thank you guys for watching all the way until the end. Remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.